A woman walks into a street in medieval France and she starts to dance. Nobody asked her to. There is no music. She doesn't want to. In fact, she is screaming. But her legs won't stop. For 4 days straight, no sleep, no rest, no food, she dances. And then something even worse happens. Other people start joining her. Not by choice, not in celebration. One by one, their bodies are taken from them. By the time it ends, hundreds of people have been seized. Dozens are dead. And the city's own doctors, trying to help, accidentally made it 10 times worse. This is not folklore. This is not myth. This is a documented historical event. And the real explanation, the one scientists landed on 5 centuries later, is somehow more disturbing than any curse could ever be. Stay with me. To understand why this happened, you have to understand what life in Strasbourg felt like in 1518. Because this story doesn't start with a woman dancing. It starts with a city that was already breaking. A famine had been grinding the region down for years, crops failing, bread running out, children dying quietly in homes that had nothing left to give. On top of the famine, smallpox, sweeping through populations that had no immunity and no treatment. On top of that, syphilis, a disease so new and so horrifying that people genuinely believed it was divine punishment. And woven through all of it, a profound grinding sense that God had abandoned them. The theology of the time didn't offer comfort, it offered terror. If you suffered, you had sinned. If disease took your child, you had not prayed enough. If your crops died, something was wrong with your soul. The population of Strasbourg was not just hungry and sick. They were psychologically shattered, carrying impossible guilt, living with unprocessable grief, with zero outlets, zero language, zero hope. Remember that. Because what comes next makes no sense without it. On a July morning in 1518, a woman named Frau Troffea stepped out of her home. We don't know much about her. We know she was married. We know she was not elderly. And then she began to move. Not rhythmically, not joyfully, twitching, jerking, lurching into a strange, violent shuffle that people who witnessed it described as terrifying to watch. Her face was not the face of someone dancing at a festival. It was the face of someone fighting. Hours passed. She didn't stop. By afternoon, a crowd had gathered. By evening, they had dispersed and returned because she was still going. Her feet, which were bare on hot stone, began to bleed. Her muscles should have given out within hours. By any normal understanding of human physiology, her body should have simply refused to continue. It did not refuse. 4 days. Frau Troffea danced for 4 days without stopping. Whatever this was, it was not over. Because by the time they took her away, at least 4 other people had already started. Within 1 week, 34 people were in the grip of the same compulsion. Within 1 month, estimates vary between 200 and 400 people. Let that land. 400 people. In a city of around 20,000, losing control of their bodies in the same way, at the same time. And here is the part every surface-level account glosses over. They were not dancing together. Each person was isolated in their own experience, trapped inside a private nightmare, surrounded by hundreds of others going through the exact same thing. Witnesses described the streets as a scene from hell. Blood on the cobblestones, people weeping as their bodies continued without permission. Some begging passers-by to hold them down. The question hanging over every street, every house, every family was the same. Am I next? The authorities called in the physicians. This was going to be the part where rational minds took over. It was not that part. The physicians reached a consensus diagnosis: overheated blood. The cure, they decided, was more dancing. They built a stage. They hired musicians, drums, fiddles, pipes. They herded the convulsing, bleeding, terrified dancers onto a platform, and they played. The death toll spiked immediately. Historian John Waller, who has written the most comprehensive academic study of this event, suggests that at the peak of the worst week, 15 people per day were dying. The stage was the worst thing the city could have done, and they kept it running for weeks. 15 people a day, because the doctors told them to keep dancing. Eventually, the musicians were silenced. The remaining dancers were loaded onto carts, still twitching, and transported to a shrine dedicated to St. Vitus. At the shrine, the dancers were given special shoes, red, blessed by priests, led through rituals. Prayers echoed for days, and then, gradually, it stopped. The historians who have studied this most carefully don't frame the shrine as a miracle, because what it actually provided was something the city had never offered before. Removal, quiet, structure, ritual, attention. Most of the survivors recovered, some never fully did. And the city of Strasbourg slowly, quietly tried to forget. So what actually happened? 3 theories, the real version of each. First, ergot poisoning, a fungus that grows on rye grain, chemically related to LSD, capable of causing convulsions and hallucinations. Possible. Except ergot isn't contagious. It doesn't spread from person to person across weeks and city blocks. Most serious historians have moved away from this explanation. Second, mass psychogenic illness. This is the leading explanation, and it is worth understanding properly. When psychological stress becomes so extreme that the brain converts distress into physical symptoms, visible, involuntary, uncontrollable physical symptoms, this is not imaginary. It is real. The symptoms are real. The suffering is real. And critically, it is contagious. Not through bacteria, not through the air, through observation. When you watch someone experience uncontrollable symptoms in a high-stress environment where you already believe yourself to be vulnerable, your brain can begin producing those same symptoms in your own body. This is not weakness. This is human neurology under conditions of extreme duress. The third theory, trance states and ecstatic religious experience were not alien to this culture. The line between possessed and dissociated is not as clean as we assume from the outside. What we can say with confidence, the dancing plague was real. People died. The response made it catastrophically worse, and the phenomenon it represents, extreme psychological pressure producing extreme physical symptoms at a population level, is not a medieval curiosity. It is something that happens today. In 2011 in Leroy, New York, 18 teenage girls suddenly developed uncontrollable tics. No physical cause was ever found. The diagnosis: mass psychogenic illness. In 2019, in Colombia, dozens of students collapsed simultaneously, same diagnosis. In 2020, a documented case of TikTok-linked tic disorder. Teenage girls around the world began exhibiting Tourette's-like symptoms after prolonged exposure to videos featuring those same symptoms. Different countries, different languages, different bodies, same mechanism. The technology changes, the social conditions change. The underlying neurology does not. We are not more resistant to this than they were. We are just better at explaining it afterward. Frau Trophea danced for 4 days. She survived. We don't know what happened to her afterward. We don't know if she ever spoke about it. We don't know if she understood what had happened to her. What we do know is this: she was not weak. She was not cursed. She was not insane. She was a human being carrying an unbearable weight in a world that had given her no way to put it down. And her body found a way to scream when her voice couldn't. That's not a medieval problem. That's a human one.